So for example, like someone like Alhan, which has all this disposable income, would you recommend him to do the 95?
Shall I bite you here or here?
95.
So I'm going to bite you now?
No,
where shall I bite you? Just tell me that.
Yeah. Loud. Yes, my peoples, we are back with Bridging the Gap episode 2. Now, if you haven't seen the first one, make sure you go and watch it right now. We actually did finance with Urban Financier, so we're going to be doing episode 2 where we're going to be learning about property. Now, just tell us a little bit about property, Baba.
I think property is something that, in life, there's two things that we're always going to need, and that's shelter and food. And shelter is property. And so it's something that all the clients I look after, property always appears on the balance sheet. It's something that a lot of people are interested in acquiring at some stage in their life. So I think it's important we all know about it.
Cool. Well, there's two main things, renting and buying.
Yep.
What are you doing?
Buying. So I think, for the long term, buying a property is something that can appreciate in asset value whilst you still get to enjoy living in it, giving something to you and your family, perhaps. But I think it's really important to understand the mechanics that go into buying a property, because for someone who's a first-time buyer, it can be quite overwhelming.
All right, so before we delve into it, bro, I think we need to just cover the basics first. So what is a mortgage?
So a mortgage is a loan that you take to buy either a house, a property, or land. And effectively, you have an agreement with a bank or a lender who will take a charge over the land or property that you buy. So effectively, whilst you buy it, they own a piece of that asset with you until you eventually pay them back in full.
Okay, so a deposit is?
So your deposit is your initial contribution or commitment to the house you're buying. So the larger your deposit, the less money you need from the bank. The smaller your deposit, the more that you're asking the bank to take a risk by putting more of their money into it. So normally that will affect the rate of interest they charge you if you're asking the bank to put in more money into the purchase than you are.
All right, and that affects how much you pay every month, obviously.
And that affects how much you pay, correct.
All right. What's like an expected deposit that banks want from you when you buy a house?
I mean, it can vary from anywhere from, say, 85% loan to value, which means that you're putting in 15% deposit. It could be 20% deposit, 30% deposit, etc. It really depends on the individual and how much you've got to contribute to the purchase. Your deposit essentially is your commitment at the outset to acquire that property or land.
And like you said, for a first-time buyer, it can sometimes be quite daunting, but there's things in place that can, there's like Help to Buy schemes or schemes for first-time buyers put on by the government. So what help is out there for people that want to buy a house for the very first time? Yeah,
there are various entry levels to getting on the property ladder. So as you mentioned, you've got government schemes. If you are a council tenant, for example, you've got something called a right to buy. Well, after you've rented a property for a certain length of time, you have access to buy that property. But you've also got Help to Buy, which is effectively buying a property up to the value of £600,000 using the government assistance. They've recently announced a 95% backed mortgages as well. So you can go and find a property to buy up to £600,000 and the government will back effectively the mortgage up to 95%, meaning that you're only having to put 5% deposit down. These are some of the schemes that you can effectively use to get on the ladder if you can't just go in and buy it out on your own.
Why would you want to do that if you don't have disposable income available?
It's not so much disposable income. I think the challenge for a lot of people, particularly in the economy now, is being able to save a large enough deposit. If you're buying a house, say the average house price in the UK is around £250,000. If you're trying to contribute a significant deposit to that, you might not have the means to actually do that because you're renting. So most of your money right now goes to rent. And so how do you save up 10, 15, £20,000? It can be difficult for a lot of people, which is why they choose some of these schemes, which allows them to enter the market with a very small deposit.
Right, and but the percentage rates are very crazy for that.
The interest rates will reflect the higher you're asking the bank to basically contribute to the purchase. So that's known as the loan to value.
Yeah, because obviously if you're basing it off of, say for example, an average house is 250k.
Yeah.
And you've got 20 grand saved. And you want to put on only 15? What's the situation then?
Yeah, so I think it's the same regardless of the value of the house you're buying. The less of a deposit you have, the more risk the bank are having to take. And so the higher your loan to value, so that's effectively the value of the loan you're taking as a percentage of the value of the house. The higher that figure is, then the more you're going to be charged for the benefit of acquiring that loan.
All right, so I feel like we've covered the basics on just like the housing market and stuff, but I actually want to get deeper. So
We want to buy a yacht.
I want to buy
Buy
a
a
house.
house.
Yeah.
Okay.
First time buyer.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm in the market. I'm looking on Zoopla.
Yeah.
Right move.
I want about page 4.
Yeah. What do I do now?
Right, so let's go through an example, a scenario of you buying a house then. So as a first-time buyer, let's say you're buying a property, average house price in the UK is around £250,000. Okay, so let's say you're buying a house for
I'll have 4 of them.
£250,000. For the purpose of this example, we'll stick to £250,000. Okay, and then we can kind of go through the logistics of how you acquire the property. I think the first thing is you need to find a house that you like. Okay, something that you think you want to buy. Get in touch with the buying agent and make sure, or the selling agent, and make sure that you make them aware that you're a serious buyer, because a lot of the time they've got other people of interest, and if you're not serious, they'll put you to the back of the queue. Okay, so make sure you build a good relationship with the agent. They can sometimes help you with the negotiations as well. Sometimes a house might be on the market for 250,000. You might be able to negotiate it for less if you've got a good relationship. Let's say your negotiation skills are not good, so you didn't manage to get a discount. So you're going to buy at £250,000. What things do you need to consider in the purchase process? So you need to think about your deposit. So for this example, let's say you want to contribute 15%. 15% deposit for this £250,000. £37,500, okay. Which means that how much mortgage are you taking?
Goodness me, a lot of money.
212,500.
Yeah.
You're good as well.
I had to come back, man. You put me under pressure there. So,
Or another way of saying it is 85%.
Oh, 85%. Listen, this is too easy. Right, so we've got it. So, right, we're buying the £250,000. We're putting 15% deposit. We've got 85% loan to value mortgage, right? So that's the mechanics of effectively what we're getting in for. So we go to the bank and we're going to ask them for that money. They would do their usual credit checks. And this is where, in the previous episode, we talked about your credit score and how important that is. They'll make sure that
we've rectified that and
you've rectified it, you've paid off your parking tickets, there's no CCJs, so we're good, right? So now they think, okay, we've checked all the details out and you're good for, the money that you're seeking. Now you've got your mortgage, what's next? You need to, effectively solicit conveyancing. So that's a solicitor, somebody who's going to act on the legal capacity to help you to buy the property.
Where do I find them?
You find them on Google, anywhere. Yeah. Sometimes the agent who's selling the house can give you contacts to solicitors that they work with.
I suppose you don't know.
They normally have an incentive, but I mean, you can always check them out to make sure that they are legit in terms of the advice they're giving you.
Shout out to Derek Bridges.
Okay, so you'll effectively use a solicitor, but these are the costs involved in the house buying process. So you're going to pay a solicitor to basically do the conveyancing for you. You're going to pay a fee to a broker if you use a mortgage broker to find you the mortgage that you want. Because sometimes people don't go to the bank directly. They go to a broker who scans the market and finds you the best deal.
Are you a broker? No.
Nah. But there are brokers who can effectively do that for you. So they'll scan the market for you and get you the best deal. So you're paying for the solicitor, you're paying for the broker, you will pay an arrangement fee to the bank, you'll pay a valuation fee for them to value.
So when do I have money for the house?
Well, this is why it's important to understand the cost associated with the purchase, because a lot of the time people only think about the deposit. So far, your deposit is one thing, solicitor fees is one thing, broker fee if you've used a broker, arrangement fee, valuation fee, and that's to effectively get all the legals and everything done.
How much am I paying these jokers?
It could vary, depending on the size of the firm, and on all these other things. So,
they've broke it into loads of different roles so they can make money from these different situations. It's all a scam.
they all serve a different purpose.
No, but then you just get one brother and click all the things.
They all serve a different purpose. So
just rent.
That's some of the upfront costs, right, of buying. The difference with renting is that money you never get back.
You're paying a man's mortgage basically.
Effectively.
Or a woman's.
Yeah, you're paying someone else.
Or a non-binary.
Yeah.
That's the upfront costs. But let's carry on with our example of the house you're buying. So we've agreed that we're looking for 85% loan to value mortgage to buy a house for £250,000.
Which is £212,000.
£212,500 is the mortgage we're going for. The typical mortgage length is about 25 years. So let's say you're asking for the bank for a 25-year mortgage.
That's what a mortgage is actually. In Latin, it means you're signing your death.
Does it?
It's a death contract.
In this scenario, let's just assume it's a stimulus to help us get a property, and that's all. I mean, look, there's nothing that says you have to keep it for 25 years. By the way, that's just the initial agreement.
Sell it 6
Until
years
the bank put the burner to your head. I've seen
bank.
Barclays do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's nothing that says you have to keep the mortgage for 25 years. But in our scenario, let's assume we are going to, start off a 25-year term mortgage, and we're going to go for a capital and interest repayment, which means that every month the mortgage is reducing. So by the end of 25 years, as long as you've made all your monthly payments, you don't owe the bank anything, the house is entirely yours, okay? So on that basis, because we're going for 85% loan to value, they might charge us, let's say, 2% interest. So borrowing £212,500 over 25 years as capital and interest at 2% rate, our monthly payments would be about £907 a month.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, so that's effectively.
hype it.
So now that we've established the terms of the mortgage and how much it's going to cost us on a monthly basis, that's one thing that you can work out at home or using online mortgage calculators. But the important question is, can you actually afford to borrow £212,500? So this is where the banks will use a calculation called loan to income ratio. Okay, so that effectively is looking at your gross annual income, timesing it usually by 4.5 or 5 times to see how much they can lend you. So if you're earning £30,000 a year,
Okay, yeah.
let's call it a year, right? In this scenario, I know 2 million followers is probably more than that a day, but let's call it 30,000 a year on average, right? That may not be enough to get you £212,500 as a mortgage.
Hardly
So that
paying
means
€3.
you need to join forces with somebody else. So Alhan brings his £30,000 income.
Right, brother, love
right?
that.
You said neighbours.
Yeah,
So
love.
now you've got a joint mortgage because you're now going to put
JM.
you're going to put your, I like the acronyms. So you're going to put your incomes together now. So 30,000, 30,000 each, put it together to apply for the mortgage. So long as both your credit score and everything else is good, now you've got enough income to borrow that amount of money. Okay.
That sounds like a great plan.
So now you've got the property. What about the ongoing maintenance cost? So remember, we ruled off the other cost to get the property. If you're buying a flat, for example, that's a leasehold property, okay? As a leasehold property, you'll have to pay ground rent because effectively, whilst you've bought the property, if it's a flat and it's a leasehold, you don't own the land that the property sits on.
I have to pay where it sits on.
Correct.
Every month.
It's usually calculated as an annual fee, but you can
They're
decide how you
violent.
pay
The
that.
fact that it's in a jurisdiction, I have to pay for it.
It's not even about the jurisdiction, it's about the freeholder. So the land that your house sits on belongs
How
to
much does it
somebody.
usually cost, you reckon? Ballpark?
Again, it really depends on
Varies.
the size.
But then if it's a
Yeah.
flat, that means you don't have to pay things like stamp duties, no?
No, you still have to pay stamp duty. Stamp
So
duty.
I should rush everyone.
Well, everyone gets it.
What's stamp duty?
Yeah, so stamp duty is something you pay to the government when you're buying a house.
Of course the government are involved. They need to make their bread somewhere.
Yeah, so
God's sake.
if you're buying a house, that's
demand
a
them at home.
leasehold. So obviously you've got the ground rent that you're paying for your flat. You may also have service charge. If you've got any shared communal spaces, lifts,
don't want a yard.
gyms,
Just loud a yard.
communal
Loud.
areas, that's a service charge. Then of course you've got your utilities you need to pay, your insurance, contents insurance that you need to pay, and then
Might
the
have to
council
char-
tax.
They might charge you for a parking bay as well, don't forget that.
They might
'cause
charge
I'm
you
not trying to
for
get more
parking.
tickets.
But then you've got your council tax as well. And that's what you pay to your local government or your local council for them to provide you with all these
Decon.
This
services.
is a scam.
This is the reality behind home
Broski,
buying.
why would I want to buy a yard if I have to pay so much, man? Just to breathe, you're gonna have to pay the breathing tax, and then actually because you did it from your nose and not your mouth, you have to pay that as well. It's just, when do I breathe?
I think these are the hidden costs that a lot of people
They're
don't
very
consider.
hidden because I didn't hear about this.
Give them the
Arraignment?
deposit and then a monthly.
He's violent.
there.
But here's the
Pay back.
difference though. So in the scenario we've just given, our monthly mortgage payment is going to be £907 a month.
So everything
Compared to
you just said-
somebody who's renting and perhaps paying £2,000 a month.
Yeah, but is it everything included?
No.
So
Everything you just mentioned. might
everything
take
I've
that up to
mentioned is all
1,500.
things you pay up front, but then the ongoing maintenance costs is on top of it. But I mean, if you look at, like I said, somebody who's renting, they could be paying into the thousands,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, they don't own anything at all. You still technically own
Yeah,
the
it's an
house
asset.
on you've bought.
Yeah, but if something mash up in your crib, you have to do it yourself. It's not no landlord stuff.
Yeah,
Call
absolutely.
the landlord. Yeah, by the way, brother, yeah, the sink not working with my slab.
There's no security deposit.
As
It's-
you have
it's
to
all
call
your
yourself.
responsibility, basically. Yeah, but these are some of the costs involved in the purchase and the process.
I put a wicked microwave in the kitchen now.
Yeah. What brand?
Wolfie Richards.
Yeah.
Good brother.
Yeah.
you know.
Samsung actually do wicked ones.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes ding.
Miele. That's a good brand.
Oh, you know, but that's all high end yards. Yeah, you're making peace. Because I got a microwave. So
You got
I mean,
mic? Okay.
Come on, got Miele.
Okay.
Oh, you touch the little thing that opens it as well.
You know about AEG cookers?
I know
Yeah, it's
AEG.
my initials, so I'll just go AEG.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, German company.
Keep it personal.
Miele. That's how you know you make bread, because I didn't know it was pronounced. I thought it was Miele.
Hey, is it Miele?
Miele.
I thought it was Mael.
Yeah, I thought it was my hell. Touch the little button and the thing opens by itself.
You got the extraction fan that tucks away, innit?
Come on, G, you know I'm an extraction fan.
Put it away.
So once you've spent all that money up front, you probably won't have budget left for Miele. But
Oh, no,
I mean,
no peace. I like Control 4 though. You know what Control 4?
No.
That's the serious stuff. That's
Ain't that the board game?
No, wow.
Connect Four.
That's where you can control the lights and your...
Oh yeah, on the little
AC.
thing on the, yeah. Oh, I say, okay, Google, turn the lights on. That's how I'm feeling. Wake me up to LBC.
Is that how you feel?
Yeah, and
Why
then
would you want to be
see-
walking up to LBC?
That's just racist.
First.
I'm just angry at the world.
Actually, I'm gonna shout you, bro, because I'm gonna buy a cribby soon.
100%.
Yeah?
Or 20% deposit. And then,
If you're putting your incomes together, then yeah.
There's no way on God's earth I'm dropping 100% of my
Yeah.
crib. No way. Can I do that? Is that possible?
What's that?
Just to buy a house
Yeah, of
outright,
course.
100%.
You can buy a house outright, absolutely. A lot of people don't do that because it's
Very
dead
rare.
money. Once you've put all that money into the house, it does nothing other than just sort of wait for eventual capital appreciation,
Yeah,
which is
but-
why a lot of people don't do it.
Is it always gonna appreciate? Facts.
Houses tend to go up over time, yes.
Has there ever been a slump in the market when it's just...
I think economic things can affect the price of houses.
What's COVID done to house prices?
I think
great question.
The impact of COVID on house prices has been interesting because initially there was some tailing off on prices because people weren't able to transact. For a few months of 2020, the housing market was completely frozen because everyone was locked up, agents couldn't transact, solicitors weren't in progress. So house prices did take a bit of a hit. However, what you found was that because of COVID and people working from home, the value and the demand for houses or homes with space really increased because people now want a garden. They want to go and live slightly outside of London because they don't need to be in the office anymore. So demand for houses outside of London went through the roof. Then the government introduced the stamp duty holiday, which meant that people could buy properties up to £500,000 and not pay any stamp duty. So then again, that brought a whole new surge to people. That's a calculation based on the value. Again, you can go online, stamp duty calculator, put the house you're buying into that, and it'll tell you how much stamp duty.
there's
you owe.
brackets, isn't there? If your house is
Correct.
up to this much, then yeah.
But as a result of that, it meant that when we came out of lockdown in summer last year, the housing market has really been in boom since. And recently in the budget, they've extended the term on which the stamp duty holiday goes on for. So again, more people are trying to complete.
So if someone wanted to buy a house this year,
Yeah,
there are a load of incentives, including stamp duties and other stuff that you mentioned,
correct,
to get that done ASAP.
correct.
That's a house up to 500,000.
Up to £500,000, there's no stamp duty.
And then after, above it,
Then the increments come. So
What
if
if
you
it's like 500,000 and £1?
increments over that £1.
increments of the £1. I mean, you'll try and negotiate to keep it at 500,000,
Yeah, I think so.
people think.
So you spoke about the reality of actually buying a house. You might think at first it's the deposit and then the monthly payments after that, but like you said, service charge, maintenance, all those
Payment
things.
fees and
You get me? Yeah, brokers and
duty.
whatnot. So why would people want to buy a house? And it just seems like less of a headache to just go and rent.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So I think the main important thing around buying a house really is about the ownership. For a lot of people, it's a personal achievement to actually buy a home that they own. It's something that you can pass down into future generations as well. It's an asset that over time will appreciate in value compared to somebody who just rents and never sees that money again. So yes, there are some upfront costs, but I think in the grand scheme of things, if you're going to own a house for 20, 30 years, you will hopefully recoup some of that costs that you spent in initial phases over time. When your house appreciates by a couple of £100,000, you'll make that money back effectively.
Is it really your house though? Because you just owe a lot of money.
If you've got a freehold property, then you own it outright and that's yours. So that's a freehold property is the opposite side to a leasehold property. So a leasehold, you don't own the land that the property sits on, but the freehold, you own
You'd
the land
recommend
that
doing
sits
freehold,
on.
yeah?
Not all flats can be freehold because sometimes there's a freeholder who owns that plot, who's
Yeah.
given it to somebody else to build on.
There's
That's
also
ground rent.
And that's where the ground rent comes
Yeah,
in.
you
there's-
know what? Leave me alone.
there's
That's too much. It's too
But
much.
there's also people that refuse to give freeholds out on there, even if it is a standalone building, if it's detached or whatever, but they can give you a leasehold up to like 99 years or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the freeholder controls the lease that they
Yeah.
give you.
So
Why do you know so much? And are you really here to learn? Because I feel like I'm the only one here to learn.
I need to go to Zoopla.
Wait, does your family have houses?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah. We actually live in one. Yeah. We actually live in a house. It's got a roof like that.
Chimney?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of actual, if people needed help, is there any like schemes where people can actually get help from? Because obviously it's not out, who can just dash 50 grand
Yeah.
into a crib, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're not made of money.
No. I think that tends to be the biggest challenge for people, being able to raise a significant deposit to buy a property by themselves. But there are lots of government schemes that are available for people. So if you're a council tenant, for example, you've got the right to buy option, which gives you access to buy the house that you're currently renting from your local government with a discount. So that's something that's available to people. You've also got help to buy if you're a first-time buyer. So again, you can buy properties up to the value of £600,000, only putting down a 5% deposit. And again, that's something that's readily available, people can use. And recently, in the recent Chancellor budget, they announced the 95% backed mortgages. So again, if you're looking to buy a house, you can just put down a 5% deposit, and lots of banks will participate in this, so you'll be able to find an offer out there.
How realistic is that though for a first-time buyer? Will they get a 5% mortgage?
So yeah, that's the whole sentiment of the government backing it.
Okay.
Because obviously they know that there's a lot more risk in order to be lending that much to a first-time buyer, and obviously them only putting so much into it. But yes, I think it's...
You also have like ISAs, and those are in some ways schemes that can help you buy, because isn't there one at the moment that if you put £1,000 for every £1,000 you put in every year,
4,000, you get £1,000.
Yeah, and the government will.
So that's a lifetime ISA. So
Yeah.
that, be careful using that, because if you've got a lifetime ISA, you have to either use it for property or
Yeah.
retirement.
And you can't
Otherwise,
take the
there are-
money out.
Correct. Otherwise, there are penalties if you take it out
Yeah.
without it.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's a good, if you're quite young,
Yeah.
you can open a lifetime ISA from early, and by the time you're ready to buy, then you've got a good hefty bit of money in there.
100%.
What's recommended for some first-time buyer? For example, like someone at Alhan, which has all this disposable income. Would you recommend him to do the
Shall I bite you here or here?
95.
So I'm going to bite you now.
No,
Where shall I bite you? Just tell me that.
Like. Say, for example, someone with Alhan, like, has got a lot of money. Would you recommend him to do the 95.5, where it's up to 600,000, or just to go for a higher purchase and like put more money?
See how we said 95.5 like it's his brethren?
Yeah. What I would say is it has to be very individual. If you've got the means of doing, acquiring a property without the support, then that's always preferable, I think, because there are no restrictions, right? All these schemes will come with their own restrictions in terms of what you can buy. And by the way, that 600,000 figure is only for London. So once you go outside to the wider parts of the country, those
all of
figures come
Manchester
down
for
a bit in
600
terms
bags,
of
that's
what
what
you can buy using those schemes. So if you are Alhan and you've got all the disposable income in the world, so much, then you don't want to be restricted by schemes.
Sorry.
That's okay. You still have to pay us for car parking.
CCG, I knew that.
You get rushed. 9 minutes.
Okay, so looking at these incentives, so if you are only contributing a 5% deposit, for example, using a help to buy scheme as a first-time buyer, then, as I said, you can buy a property up to the value of £600,000, and you only need a deposit of £30,000.
All right. But
The government are paying 570 for you.
The government are contributing some, but obviously you're always taking a mortgage.
Yeah, which is on the bank.
As well.
Of course.
For example, Coots.
So how much? So you're paying 30 grand. How much is the government covering?
So the government will either give you an equity loan for 20% or 40%
Of the house?
of the house. And so you can either choose, obviously if you've only got 5% deposit, then you're probably going to need the full amount that they'll give you, which is 40%. And then you need to get a mortgage for the remainder.
55% from the government.
Correct.
And what,
From the bank.
From the bank.
what use is it for you if you can put more of a deposit down?
Yeah.
So if they're willing to give you a 5% and they're saying, all right, cool, we trust you with this money, but you can't afford more, would it be beneficial to you to put down maybe 10, 20%?
I think the more you can put in, then the more of the house you own sooner.
Cool.
But also the lower the costs are probably going to be
Each
if
month.
interest rates are going to be higher for you putting in.
And then you might be able to buy a meal cooker or a meal.
You could
Was it
Miele.
Yeah, Miele, yeah. Sorry, my bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Miele with a Richard Miele.
Got an acronym for that one as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a MWRM.
What's that?
We'll work
Miele
with
with a Richard Miele.
that. We can work with that. All right. I know what you mean.
APT. And I think Thai.
I know what you mean. It's orange, actually.
Is that orange?
Yeah.
That's not
Orange?
It's orange.
Right, we got a problem.
It's orange.
It's not.
It's orange.
Ah, it's orange, broski. It's the light that's the
orange?
light to us.
Okay.
Raw.
AOT.
That's crazy. Hey, orange light.
All right, people. Thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Bridging the Gap. We have successfully bridged that gap.
We have, bro.
You get me? We've learned some more. You know what? This is the second that we had you for episode 1, episode 2. Should we just have Urban Financier?
Yeah, he's great. He's actually excellent.
Yeah, I mean, forget the guys waiting in over there. We've got some doctor nutrition. I will learn about property all day long. You get me? But yeah, thank you very much. And we hope everyone watching at home learned some stuff along with us. If there's anything else you want us to discover in this series, then comment below. But for now, like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, we'll catch you next one. Thank you very much, my brother. Anything else you don't want to do?
No, you just hit the nail on the head, to be fair.
I've been Alhan, this has been
Chunkz.
and you've been
Urban Financier.
and you've been great. See you in a fat yard sometimes, see you with a 5% deposit.